Okay, so we are doing the tier list for how every team in the NFC did in this draft class. I already did the AFC. You see that on the board. If you want to hear my thoughts on that, you can, why I put teams in certain spots, you can check out that video, or maybe you just want to hear my thoughts on your favorite team, which I can understand as well. And if your favorite team is an NFC team, well, let's get into it. Let's start off with the Detroit Lions, who, Tyreek Williams, I like him for what he is as a player. I like Tate Ratledge enough, although I don't know if he's my favorite prospect, but I like him. I think it's a fine pick there. The Isaac Tisala selection, which I'm still pretty sure I'm not saying his name right. Sorry about that. That one was a bit of a head scratcher for me personally, but ultimately the Lions kind of feel like they belong in this tier, which is the got what you needed, but did you maximize value tier. There's been times in the past where I feel like I would have put them in this tier and they proved me wrong and should have been in a better tier. But listen, Tyreek Williams will do something very well. Could you have gotten a more impactful player there? Maybe, but that's how the Lions operate, and who am I to question the success they've had, right? If they didn't have those injuries, maybe they're winning the Super Bowl last year. Who knows? The Vikings are next on this list. So first, only 5 selections. You don't love that. Also, Donovan Jackson was not a player I think I would have fully gone with at pick 24, personally. Was projected to go 39th. He was not a top 50 player on my big board, but should be a fine player for them. So, to be honest, I think that they are also going to be in the got what you needed, but did you maximize value tier. And part of it was they just weren't going to have a dominant draft because they had already traded away so many picks from last year's draft. So kind of is what it is. Next up is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who made a controversial move with the Emeka Egbuka selection. But listen, I'm never going to critique a team for drafting receivers or valuing receivers highly, especially a team like Tampa Bay, which is built on the passing attack. Was a touch early for me for that player, but ultimately, I think Tampa Bay more than made up for it with some of these later picks. Guys like Benjamin Morrison and Jacob Parrish should be really good and really fit that scheme well, and also are players who can, add depth to a position that really needed depth added to for Tampa Bay. Also, David Walker is a really fascinating player at pick 121. He dominated low level of competition. Could he dominate higher level of competition? And Tez Johnson was projected to be, at 235, that feels like a special teams pick, but he was projected to go way earlier than that. He was projected to go over 100 picks earlier. So I don't think that they're fully just drafting him for special teams, although definitely to some degree, special teams will be a part of it. So I really like this draft. I'm going to put this in the mostly smart. I think it was mostly smart. So yeah, that's where I have that. Then there is the 49ers, who really added a lot of muscle to the interior, right? Which is, an important thing to do. I don't know if Mikael Williams was my favorite prospect, but I liked him. I don't know if I would have got him at 11, but I like him. So ultimately, they came in with a decision, clear mindset here of wanting to improve the defensive line, and they also add Nick Martin at pick 75. He was projected to go 170th, so there's maybe some questions there. This is a fine draft for me. I don't know if it's getting the people going fully, but I'll put it again in the middle tier. The got what you needed, but did you maximize value tier. We then have the Atlanta Falcons, who, boy, did they take some big swings. With the, taking Jalen Walker, who's very much a developmental guy, a guy who played just as much off-ball linebacker as he did edge in college, and because of that, wasn't fully able to develop in college, so they're going to have to develop him into pros. James Pierce, a prospect I really liked. They are trading a future first to get him, and it was just for pick 26. So there's there's a gamble there. Falcons have to make sure they play well. I did really like Xavier Watts as well. I've gone back and forth on this. I don't know if I love the trade. It feels a touch too much, and it almost feels like the Falcons are kind of saying, well, let's see if we can make this work. And if not, well, hey, it'll be someone else's problem because we're all getting fired anyway, which isn't exactly how you want it to work. So it's a gamble. It's a gamble that totally could pay off. I really do like James Pierce Jr. I'm not as high on Jalen Walker just because I don't love developmental guys like that. So I'm going to put them in the got what you needed, but did you maximize value? I think that's fair. They really got important pieces for this roster. There's just a lot of risk here as well. So then there is the Bears, who, some picks I really like. The Luther Burden, the third pick in round 2, I think that's going to be an awesome pick. He's going to be a great player for them. Colston Loveland fits this scheme really well. I've kind of gone back and forth, and again, some picks down the stretch I like, some I don't love, but really those are kind of the two key ones here. And then, but for Colston Loveland, I went back and I did a film study on kind of just viewing it from the perspective of how will he fit this Ben Johnson scheme. And I really do kind of get now why the Bears decided to make that selection, because I think he's going to fit it really well. And so because of that, maybe this is unfair. I'm going to put them in the mostly smart tier. I think this is actually going to work out really well for them. We'll see how it goes, and part of this is just because I love the Luther Burden, the third selection, but that's how I'm going to end up going with that. We then have the Cowboys, who, listen, Tyler Booker was not a player that I think should have gone top 12. He goes at 12. That's fine. I think he's still a fine player. We'll still help them out. I did really like some of their other selections, though. Donovan Ezeraku, getting him at pick 44 was pretty good. I didn't love him as a first rounder, but for a mid-second rounder, I'll definitely take that. Siobhan Revel, a player I really liked. I wouldn't say I really liked, but I liked him as like an early round 2 guy. He ends up falling to mid round 3, so okay, take that selection as well. So a couple of really nice ones. I think because of the not great first round pick, in my opinion, I'm going to still have to put them in the middle tier of got what you needed, but did you maximize value? But there definitely was some better picks, and I think that, I think it's fair to say that this is maybe an underrated draft because of how their rounds 2 and 3 went. Next up is the Los Angeles Rams. Some interesting picks here. It wasn't crazy about the Terrace Ferguson pick that they had in the middle of the second round, but mostly like their other picks. Josiah Stewart, getting him at 90 when he was projected to be a sort of a mid-second rounder. That's good value. Chris Paul Jr., I think he can come in and be a potential starting level linebacker. Getting him at pick 172 is great. Jarquez Hunter at pick 117 is good. And the trade with the Atlanta Falcons, even if there was one pick I didn't love and it was their first one for the Rams, I still don't hate that pick. And so I'm going to put them into mostly smart, in part because I thought that the trade was a good call by them to, again, take the gamble with the Falcons. If the Falcons end up next year, really bad, okay, hey, maybe you can get a quarterback for the future. If the Falcons end up okay, well, then you could still get a quarterback for the future if you want to trade up both these things. Or if the Falcons are good, well, you gave up the 26th overall pick. Like, you're not really losing value. So it almost feels like you're gambling, but only for a potential positive, which is pretty good to do. So yeah, I like that. The Washington Commanders, so I love the Trey Amos pick at pick 61. I think that was fantastic. I'm not a huge Josh Connerly fan, and so I think they kind of reached a little bit there, which is also not the biggest position of need in my opinion. Also not a huge Jalen Lane fan, although I think he'll be able to do some nice things. They also got a couple of special teams guys later, and they only had 5 picks. So because of that, it just wasn't my favorite draft, even if they did have one pick in particular that I absolutely loved, which I thought was great, which was the Trey Amos pick. The New Orleans Saints are next on this list, a team that I did not love every selection. In fact, there's a lot of these picks, in the middle selections that I wasn't crazy about. I wasn't a huge Tyler Shook fan just because of age. I feel like part of why he's good is because he's pretty much a fully developed quarterback at this point. So what's the ceiling there? Although he was good in college, he definitely had a good final year, and at least they didn't spend the 9th overall pick on a quarterback. Love the Kelvin Banks Jr. pick. He was my tackle 1, so definitely a big fan of that. Some question marks though, like Vernon Broughton, getting him at 71 felt a bit early. He was projected to go 153rd. There was a few other of those, although some on the other side as well down the stretch. So I'm kind of in between the mostly smart and got what you needed, but did you maximize value? This tier is starting to become a little crowded, but whatever. Let's add another one to the mess. They did some nice things. You could argue they're mostly smart. I still think that some of these picks later, you could argue, like, did you maximize value on some of them? We'll see. The Giants, who, again, a big part of how you feel about the Giants draft is going to come down to your evaluation of Jackson Dart, who I liked. I said was worth a first-round pick, so kind of around this is when I would have tried to take a chance. I think he ended up being like 13th on my big board, but in a usual draft, he would have been a late first-rounder for me. It's just it was kind of a weaker draft. I think getting Abdul Carter was really smart. I think Darius Alexander at 65 is a good pick, and I think Cam Scatterbo, who is a player who I don't know if he's going to work in the NFL, but at pick 105, that feels like kind of a steal. So yeah, ultimately, I mean, I really like this draft. I'm going to put it in the mostly smart. Again, the Jackson Dart thing will be the question, but I think they did a lot of smart things here. I like Jackson Dart. So again, if you don't like Jackson Dart, then you don't love this draft. But yeah, it's that. And they didn't have to give up a future first to get the quarterback, so that's nice as well. The Philadelphia Eagles, I mean, you know the Philadelphia Eagles had a good draft. You already know that this was well done, because that's what the Eagles do, right? Is they consistently make a ton of smart picks. They had a good amount of draft picks in this draft class, getting Jahad Campbell and Andrew Makuba, two players that I think will really help out this team. Big fan of the Eagles. I'll put them in the mostly smart tier as well. Then we're going to have the Packers, so they had a really weird draft, kind of similar to how I felt about the Denver Broncos. I loved the Packers' first round pick when they got Matthew Golden. Again, I think the downside, the criticism of a Matthew Golden selection is like, well, is he someone who, if he doesn't reach his potential, now you just have another wide receiver 2, and they have plenty of wide receiver 2s. But if he does reach his potential, well, now you have a wide receiver 1, which makes this whole receiving core look loaded. Loved that. Didn't love every other selection, though, although I still, there were some picks along the way I liked. The Anthony Belton one was kind of a weird one, to be honest. I didn't fully get that. A couple other ones later on, but I don't know. I like the first pick enough, whatever. I'm feeling in a generous mood for the Packers for whatever reason. I'll say mostly smart just because of how much I liked that first one. Then we had the Panthers, who, listen, some people aren't as high on Ted McMillan as others. I am high on him. I think he's a really good player, and I think it's absolutely the correct move at pick 8 to do something like that. Also getting Nick Scornton and Princely Yu, who are two players that, were projected to go earlier than they ended up getting selected. Some people were really high on both of those players, so getting them at the edge position, helping out the defense that way is really smart. They have help for Bryce Young now. Yeah, this was just a really smart draft. So I'm going to put it in the mostly smart tier. So yeah, that's where I have them. The Cardinals are another team who, I mean, just the Walter Nolan and the Will Johnson duo of two players that were projected to go top 20. They get both of them, right? Granted, one of them was with a top 20 pick, but still, getting Will Johnson, who I get it, had some injury history that maybe people were a little bit concerned about. But honestly, they also had nice picks along the way as well. A lot of solid players that could be contributors. So yeah, I'm a big fan of this draft. I'm putting it in the amazing tier. There's a chance they get a great interior guy and a great corner, which for a defense that could use a couple of studs, this could completely change how the Cardinals are this year. And it's not like they were bad last year, but this could put them on another level. Finally, the Seattle Seahawks, who wasn't the Gray Zabel thing. I wasn't as huge on him as some other people were. He was projected to be a late first rounder. I think there's things to really like about him, right? The tape is fantastic. He did, when he played against good competition, look good. I think the question is just like, he very rarely played against good competition, being a North Dakota State University guy. So he's just a risk. I'm not saying it's going to work out or not going to work out. There's just that added risk thing. But ultimately, they really needed a guard. Nick Emanuele, another guy that some people loved. I liked. I also liked Elijah Arroyo, though, and I was a big fan of Jalen Milroe. So hey, we're all thinking the Sam Darnold thing will work, but if it doesn't, well, at least you have a plan B now. So there's that. So ultimately, yeah, I would say this is another, and Damian Martinez, I believe that was one of my under the radar draft picks that might work out when I made that video. So yeah, a mostly smart draft by the Seahawks as well, which is, again, how most of these drafts are going to go, right? You're usually going to get a few amazing, mostly smart will be the biggest tier, and then a good chunk of like got what you needed, but did you maximize value? And only, in this case, 5 I put lower. Sorry, Bengals fans, you're the only one I put in the bottom tier. But and if you want to hear why, check out the AFC video and listen to that. But yeah, those are my thoughts on the draft. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Always love hearing from you, and of course, as always, thanks for watching.